When people ask what Dr. Dale does, people say, who are athletes, they'll say, well, he's my coach's guru. He's the coach's guru. He presents all across the United States. We were talking earlier. He's traveling around the world, and he names some countries that I can't even pronounce. Are you ready? I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Greg Dale. Are you hooked up?
Yeah. Maybe we can turn that one. Thank you.
Let me turn this off.
All right. If you're able, I'd love for you to find a partner and stand up and face your partner. Can you guys do that? Stand up. We've been sitting for a little while, so if you're able to do that, I'd love for you guys to do that for me. And if you sit next to somebody you don't know, introduce yourself. Tell them where you're from. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to look them up and down, all right? I want you to look them up and down a couple times, head to toe. Look them up and down. And after you've done that, I'd like you to turn and face away from each other. And I'm going to ask you to change 5 things about your appearance. Without looking at each other, I'd like for you to change 5 things about your appearance, how you look right now. Go. 5 things. Not 4, not 6, but 5. We're going to see how observant you were. What are 5 things that you can change without looking at your partner? Five things about your appearance. All right, we ready? Give me about 10 more seconds here. 5 things. All right, now when I say go, you can turn around. You guys take turns, see if you can identify all 5 things. Go. All right. How do we do? Did you guys do okay? Yeah. Yeah. Some of you. All right. You can sit. Normally, if I was doing this with a group of kids, we'd do a couple other things, but for time's sake, raise your hand if after you changed those 5 things, I identified them, immediately you started changing back to the way you looked. You started fixing yourself back. Come on, raise your hand. Many of you did that. How come? I didn't say I want you to change back. You just started doing that. How come? Why'd you guys do that? Because it was comfortable. Yes, it was comfortable, or we felt awkward doing it the other way. Change is not necessarily easy. How about this? Can you guys cross your arms for me? Try this one. Cross your arms. This is how you cross your arms. You're mad at your children, your significant other. Cross your arms. Now I want you to unfold them and cross them again, but do it exactly the opposite of the way that you just did it. Totally opposite. How's that feel? Feels a little awkward, does it not? Hold it there for a second. Some of you are really having a hard time with that, right? Yes. It's difficult. It's awkward, right? Okay, you can let go. Here's the thing. I'm going to encourage you, those 2 little exercises right there prove that sometimes change is a little uncomfortable. And I know that I am honored to be here because I think I'm speaking to the choir, so to speak, here. Because you guys are motivated. You're taking time out of your summer, not your school year, but your summer to come and learn how to become more effective in what you're doing. And I hope I affirm you in our little bit of time together. But maybe I also want to challenge you a little bit. And maybe there's some habits that you have that are still lingering, or some ways that you do things that maybe you might want to change that just a little bit. I also have to say, gosh, what an honor for me to be up here with Reiner and Dolly and you guys. I followed you guys both. I'm from Texas, just a little while north of there, and obviously in the field of sports psychology, he's the man with no doubt about that. So I'm really honored to do that. So what I want to do is, I definitely want you guys to help me out. I was talking about this a little bit earlier. How do we talk about these kids today compared to how we were when we were kids? I would argue we say these kids aren't motivated. These kids are entitled. These kids don't have a great work ethic, on and on and on. There's a great quote about kids today. Check that out. I won't read it. I'll let you read that. It's kind of long. Does that sound like kids you know? Interestingly enough, that's attributed to Socrates back in 399 BC. That I would argue that deep down, every generation of adults talks about the next one in very much the same way. I think technology has changed and parents have changed dramatically. But deep down, these kids are very much the same. And I hope that you'll think about that as we go through here. My goals here are just really simple. Think about characteristics of highly effective teachers and get you to think about your teaching style and philosophy. I've loved watching all the interaction, and I started off as a physical education teacher myself, and I love every opportunity I have to come and speak to and spend time with teachers and coaches. If you're a coach, I hope you'll think about how this applies to you as a coach, but certainly teachers, we're going to talk about the art of teaching. There's a lot of science that goes into this, and you can know your stuff, but if you're not able to capture kids' hearts and relate to them, you're not going to be as effective as you could be. So here's some questions to think about. Do you create fear, develop confidence? Do you make the teaching environment drudgery or challenging and fun? Look at this real quickly. I have to do something, I get to do something, I want to do something. Think about that. Is there a different level of engagement when if kids are thinking, I have to go to Miss So-and-so's PE class today, or I have to go to or I have to go to practice today? You might not get kids to where they ultimately get to, I want to, but the best teachers create an environment, a situation where kids are thinking, I get to go to so-and-so's class today. I get to do this, okay? I would also encourage you to model that. You know, with our teams at Duke, we don't get to say out loud, I have to go to practice. I have to do this. We try to look at it like, I get to. And how can we get kids to move further along? Given the same students, how is it that some teachers have few disciplinary problems while others have many? How are some teachers able to establish trusting relationships with kids? And what's this elusive quality that causes students to respect you, trust you, and allow you to teach them? And I really ultimately believe, even if you're teaching elementary kids, it comes down to credibility, that students have to believe in you enough to willingly follow you. They have to give you the permission to teach them, I think, and they have to buy into what you're teaching. And I think credibility is like a bank account, and you're either making deposits or you're making withdrawals. And boy, it takes a long time to sometimes establish that, but boy, you can lose it very quickly. And as we're thinking about connecting with kids, I want you to think about this. I think great teaching, I don't know if you guys can all see that, is very much like fly fishing. Is very much like fly fishing. Think about it. The best fly fishermen, the best fly fishing people, however you want to say that, here's what they do. They know which flies to use, and sometimes those fish are jumping out of the water at everything they throw at them. But great teachers are also able to connect with those that are lurking in the water, that are deep and they're kind of hiding, and they're not so willing to jump out there at everything that they throw at them. They know how to change that fly, and here's what they do. Fly fishermen, what they do is they catch them, they bring them right here, right into the palm of their hands, and then they release them. It's the same thing you guys do. Great teachers, they catch them, they know how to catch them, and they're able to figure out ways to catch even those ones that aren't just jumping out of the water. They catch them, they teach them, they nurture them, they develop them, and then you release them on to that next level. That to me is like great teaching. Great fly fishing is like great teaching. I hope I get you to think about that a little bit. She talked about a little bit about legacy a little bit earlier. How about this? Who was the greatest teacher you ever had in your life? Can somebody just very quickly give me some characteristics or traits about that teacher? Who was the best teacher? Don't tell us who they are, but what was it? Made it fun. What else? Caring. Honest. Passionate. Yes. Forgiving. Consistent. Yes, we could go on. How about your least favorite teacher you ever had? How would you describe that person? Stern. What's that? Critical. Lazy. Mean. Yes. And if you think about it, there's a gentleman that taught and coached in this community for 35 years. And unfortunately died at a pretty young age of 60 years old. And he's at his funeral. There was a line out the door and down the sidewalk and even around the corner, down the street, of all these former students and athletes who were in his classes and played for him. And in the middle of that line, there was this elderly lady. And she said, "Gosh, this guy must have been an incredible man for all you to come back here and pay your respects to this guy." And the big guy behind her sort of sheepishly looked down and he said, "You know, lady, this guy's the meanest, toughest SOB you can imagine. We're all here to make sure he doesn't get out of that box today. That's why we're here today." Now, obviously, that's a joke, all right? But I want you to think about each of you leave footprints. And if I were to ask each of you to stand up right now and say what the majority of the kids that come in your school and that come to your classes, what you'd like for them to say, you'd all say the right things. You'd all say that I was passionate, that I cared. Every kid knew that I cared about them. I was understanding. I had patience. Am I right? You would all say those things. How about this? In the next, before school starts, why don't you take and write down 3 or 4 things that I want the overwhelming majority of the kids that come through my classroom each day, what I want them to say about their experience with me. Write it down, put it down somewhere where you can see it. I'm not saying put it on your refrigerator where everybody can see it, but regularly you ought to pull that out and ask yourself, if it's important my kids know I care, then what am I doing to show them that I care about them? It's important that we do that. Here's a couple of thoughts about this. Even though this guy coached at that other place down the road from where I am, a lot of respect for what he talks about. It says if you're leading but no one's following, you really is out for a walk, right? And I think that you must first touch the heart before you can teach the mind. What we're talking about is how do you capture kids' hearts and how do you get them to buy into this? This is a lot of work that I'm doing lately. I think that we go through different seasons of our life as a teacher, okay? And I want you to think about this. I want you to think about which of these seasons you're in right now. Because I would argue your effectiveness, your credibility, your ability to get kids to buy into you has a lot to do with which of these stages that we're in. And here's the first one. I hope you can see that picture, but the first one is swamped. What's it like to be a first-year teacher? You guys remember that? That guy's fishing water out of the boat. What's it like in that first year? You guys remember that? Just struggling to keep your head above water, right? Yes. At some point, we start to figure it out, and we have what we call smooth sailing. We're starting to put things together a little bit, and we're going along, and it's pretty good. And then at some point, it's full speed ahead. And that's when you're in that transformational stage, and that's where you're truly engaging, that you're making a difference for kids. You're truly transformative for other people that you work with. Now, we also get to where some people start to drift a little bit, and we start to coast a little bit. And we start to do the same thing over and over and over again. Sometimes life happens to us, and it causes us to lose our passion for what we're doing. It becomes difficult, right? Some point, some of us become dead in the water. We're retired on our feet. I would argue that most of you in this room probably are not going to spend a lot of your career here. But how about this? I would bet if you're a great teacher, by Friday, you're right here, right? Friday afternoon, you're exhausted. You are exhausted. But what I find is that there are teachers, and again, I think there are many of you in this room because you probably wouldn't be here, but struggle. It happens with coaches as well. Coaches who coach struggle also being credible as a teacher. I think it's very difficult to be great at something and have balance in your life. Can you be a great teacher and a great coach at the same time? Yes, you can, but it's very difficult. And do you have any time for your family at home as well? I see it all the time. It's very difficult to be credible and to give everything you have and be passionate about what you do and still have those quality relationships when you go home. We talk a lot about being where your feet are as an athlete and as a coach and as a teacher. And when you go home, you got to be able to be home and be credible in those roles. It's very difficult to do. And I just think that this is kind of true north for us as teachers. This is where, ideally, where we want to be. And be careful when we get here that kids start to not buy in anymore and they struggle with us as teachers. I would tell you, if you ever go to University of North Carolina, Franklin Street, a lot of great bars and restaurants. I'll tell you, there's a couple of their physical education professors in what we call that that stage. They're dead. No, I got to get my digs in whenever I can here. I'm just kidding here. One guy said that's just after a great win right there. You know, I spent a lot of time looking at this. I just want to share 3 things with you very quickly. You guys have mentioned these. I just want to affirm you, challenge you, then we'll let you go here. But think about where you are. Be really self-aware when it comes to these 3 things in terms of your credibility. We all know, I would argue it's the most important thing. Why is it most important that kids know that we care about them? And some of you are going to say, well, this great saying, right? They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But what about it? Why is it important that kids know we care about them? Anybody, why is it important? You know, I'm a college professor, so I'm used to silence when I ask questions, so I can kind of hang out up here for a while. What do you think? Yeah, so they can trust you. All right, very good, yes. So it's a mutual respect. It builds relationships. Are relationships important? They're huge. They're huge. So I would ask you guys, very quickly, how do you actually show them that you care? How do you show kids you care? Show up, listen, cut them some slack for being a kid. Yes. Ask them questions about life, home. Boy, mom and dad are going through a divorce. That kid might be a little more distracted in class. Do you try to make an effort to connect with every single kid, every class, even if it's just a high five, right? I know you have a lot of kids in your classes, but could you figure out a way to know when every kid's birthday is? I'm not saying that we have to have a little party, have some cupcakes for everybody, but when you see that kid and you say happy birthday, wow, she actually knows it's my birthday. Big deal. That's a huge deal to kids, right? There's lots of different ways that you can show them that you care. It's absolutely, absolutely critical. We're going to take a little quiz here. You guys remember Charles Schultz? Remember that guy, right? So we're going to take a little quiz. Can you name the 3 wealthiest people in the world? How about this one? Can you name the last 3 Heisman Trophy? That's football, by the way, for those of you that... How about this one? Come on, I know you know these people, right? Really famous. How about any category, last people that won the Nobel or Pulitzer Prize? Anybody? How about last 3 Academy Award winners for Best Actress? How about last 3 World Series winners? How we doing? Did you guys fail? Did you pass? Anybody get any of them right? All right, so guess what? I'm such a nice guy. We're going to take a little make-up quiz. How about that one? Right? Could you do that? How about that? Could you do that? Now, maybe some of you, that last one, you're thinking, well, I've only got a couple I could enjoy spending time with. Think about it. So as he talks about it, and I think it's so true, and it ultimately applies to you guys, it's not the ones with the most money, the best credentials, or the greatest awards. It's the people who care about us that truly make the difference for us. That's you guys. That is you guys. No doubt about it, all right? How about confidence builder? I was talking to the group a little bit earlier that I don't think as a teacher you give kids confidence. I don't think you can give it to them. It's not a gift. It ultimately comes from within, but boy, you can influence their confidence. Would you guys agree with that? How about this? I think that confidence is kind of like spinning plates. Think about it for a second. That guy, his ideal is he's getting all those plates spinning all at once, right? Now you might, and so if this one starts to wobble, what does he do over here? What's he do to this one? He comes over and spins it. Then this one starts to wobble and he spins that one a little bit, right? He wants them all going at the same time. See, I think that's what we do. We gotta, when kids are struggling, you gotta be able to go over there. How do you spin that kid's plate? And how do you spin this kid's plate? I also think about this. I think we have, would you guys agree we have favorites? Who are our favorites to teach? Don't name them by name, but what are those traits? Who do we love to teach? The go-getters. Who else? What's that? The ones that are nice, yes. Yes. The ones that are enthusiastic, right? How about our least favorite? How would you just, who are those folks? Who are those kids? Negative. What else? Lazy. Don't follow the rules. So how about, here's a challenge for you. How difficult is it to teach a kid who's energetic, who's nice, who loves what they're doing, and can't wait to come to your class every day? How difficult is it to teach those? How many times have we said, well, if I only had 10 more of those, right? Man, just give me one every now and then would be great. How about great teaching? How do you connect with that kid who's lazy, who doesn't want to come and work? See, that's that kid who's like that trout who's hanging off back over there in the deep water, and you're not just jumping out at everything that you throw at them. How do we connect with those kids, right? How do we help them feel confident? So thinking about that, how about this? I think this is in terms of building confidence as well as self-motivation. Think about it. Can they answer yes to, can I do it? Will it work? And is it worth it? If they can answer yes to those things, and if you're regularly thinking about that, they're going to feel more confident and more self-motivated. They're going to feel much more likely to want to do something, right? Think about that. I think when appropriate, if you can provide them choices. Sarah talked a little bit about choices earlier today. That if they're if you give them choices, they're going to be more confident, more self-motivated. Okay, think about it. And you want them to seek success as opposed to avoiding failure. How do you interact? Some earlier you talked about how do we keep kids engaged? How do we show them that we care? You talked about being forgiving and allowing them to make mistakes. How about this? The quickest way to create a fear of failure in somebody is punish them when they fail. The quickest way to create a fear of failure in some kid, you encourage them, you take them, and you extend them, and you ask them to do something, and then you punish them when they fail. Boy, they're going to be afraid to fail. We want kids seeking success as opposed to avoiding failure. Do kids screw up on purpose? What do you think? Now, sometimes, maybe you're thinking sometimes they do, right? They don't. And then, making it personal, sarcasm. Boy, I could spend all day on this one with coaches. Maybe you guys aren't as bad, but coaches are very sarcastic. Anybody else here sarcastic other than me? Yes. If you're teaching middle school and below, they're not going to get your sarcasm. I'm just telling you now, it's going to go right over their head. There's difference in being sarcastic about the situation or a little bit about yourself, but once you start to individualize your sarcasm, that's when things change. That's when things change, right? And we're undermining confidence. Making it personal. Gosh, I heard a coach tell a kid not long ago, if you're in a race with a pregnant woman, you come in third, son. That's how slow you are. Wow. Now, some of you, that's the first time you've taken notes all day. I got to remember that. Be careful about making it personal with them and obviously belittling. I could go on, but I'm sure most of you don't do that. Here's a couple of things about this. Just the main thing I would say about this. So at the end of the day, is it about picking up glass or is it about spinning plates? Why are we tired? Are we exhausted and spent because we're spinning those plates and we're working really hard to do even those kids who are our least favorite, okay? It's a challenge. Couple of comments on this one. You gotta have kids that are excited about it, right? Emerson talks about this idea that we want people to inspire us to do things that we didn't know we could do. And obviously, all of you've heard this, but just as a reminder, it all comes down to how you make them feel, okay? Last part of this, and then I'll wrap this up, guys, is consistency. Some days you're going to have a bad day, right? Some days bad things happen. It's tough. Some days when you wake up in the morning, you can't decide whether you want to wear your have a nice day shirt or screw you shirt. You're struggling on which one of those you want to wear. Totally get that. But in terms of consistency, just a couple things about this one, got to be consistent in your mood. It's so challenging for you guys. I do a lot of work in the corporate world, and I tell them all the time, they have no idea how hard they have to work. Go try to do something you do 6 times and be in front of a group of 20 or 30 kids and be on every day, all the time, and manage that. It's really difficult. But I'm going to encourage you to be credible. You got to be on. You got to try to be consistent in your mood. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one, but be careful. I hope you don't have a lot of rules. The fewer the rules, the better. How about just having expectations rather than all these rules? Be careful about stating all your consequences ahead of time, because as one very successful coach talks about, life is a series of extenuating circumstances. And if you live in a black and white world where you state the consequences ahead of time, you're always going to paint yourself into a corner. Life happens. Things happen. Be careful about doing that. And it's equal, it's not equal, it's equitable, particularly, certainly for those of you that are coaches, but there's some classrooms, they only have one rule: do the right thing, okay? Our men's basketball team, they've got one rule: don't do anything detrimental to you, this team, or this school. If you do, there will be a consequence for that. That's leading, right? That is helping kids make the right choices. I would argue we could even do some of that even at the younger levels where we are. And be careful about double standards and dog houses. Do kids have to, and again, I know we all have favorites, right? We all do, but be careful about the double standards and dog houses. Are kids continually in your dog house? Can you deal with it and move on? It's really, really important, all right? The only quote I have here, some of you have seen Chaim Geno's quote about this. I'll let you read it. I think it's a reminder of the impact that we have, the culture, the environment that you create. The culture in your classroom is a direct reflection on you and your leadership. The culture in your gym, whether kids are engaged, whether they're excited about coming, whether they want to be there or they get to be there, is very much a reflection, not completely, but very much a reflection on you as the leader and how you do those kinds of things. So I would encourage you to really think about that. All right, so some final thoughts. First thing I'm gonna say is be yourself unless you're a jerk, all right? You don't have to be these other people. Be yourself unless you're a jerk, all right? I would also say, think about it. Would you enjoy coming to your class every day? Would you be excited about coming and thinking, I get to go to so-and-so's class today? Would you think about this? I want you to treat kids the way you'd want somebody else to treat your own child. Your child's in that classroom or that gym or that field or that court or wherever it is. How would you want them to treat your son or daughter? Think about that. You got to take a risk, respect, loyalty, and trust to your kids before they'll extend it to you. I also think that they got to believe you're credible, a credible teacher before they willingly follow you and put their hearts in it. And this is, if they believe in you, they trust you, you have relationships with them, they're not going to think, oh, this is a credible teacher or not. But credibility is that people buy into you and they want to do what you're asking them to do, all right? And I think being a credible teacher isn't something that you do, it's something that you are. Are you credible as a result of the things that you do each and every day, okay? You know, I hope I affirmed you. I hope I challenged you a little bit just to think about the art of teaching. I know I went through it very quickly, but I hope you leave here thinking maybe there's one thing I want to change. I want to continue to make sure I do this, but here's something that maybe I might change. It might make me a little more effective in what I do. I would tell you there's my best two places to get in touch with me are cell phone or email. Those are the best two places. If you ever come to Durham, I tell everybody, look me up. I can't promise you basketball tickets, but I can promise you football tickets, all right? We definitely have some of those to go around. You know, in addition to my role as the sports psychologist, I'm also a professor. I teach psychology of sport and performance, and then I teach a sport ethics class in the spring. Sport ethics. That's like an oxymoron, is it not? You know, I want to tell you very quickly, and I'll wrap it up, that if you ever go to one of our men's basketball games, our student section, they camp out for 2.5 months just to get tickets to the Carolina basketball game. Their parents pay $65,000 a year for them to live in a tent. It looks like a war zone out there. They get sick, they get pneumonia, but boy, they are committed. And no matter who we're playing, and no matter what the score is, at some point, they have a chant about that other place 8 miles down the road. And no matter who we're playing, the chant is, go to hell, Carolina, go to hell. Think about that, right? Now, I took my 2 older children to a game. My daughter was 11, my son was 6. My daughter had been to many games. My son, as a kindergartner, it was the very first chance to get to go to a men's basketball game at Duke. Awesome, exciting. We're playing University of Miami. We're up by 20. 2 minutes left in the game, and the student section starts their chant. Go to hell, Carolina, go to hell. And my 11-year-old daughter jumps right up with everybody else, and she's screaming as loud as she can. Now, when you think about how proud you are as a sport ethics professor, your daughter's saying that about the other team, right? Go to hell, Carolina, go to hell. They say it 3 times, and my son says, what are they saying? What are they saying? And my daughter says, and she tells him, and that little kindergartner with his Duke uniform on, he stands up and he starts yelling, go to hell, Carolina, go to hell. And he says it 3 times, and he stops, and he gets that childlike look on his face, and he looks over at me and says, gosh, Dad, do we really want those guys to go to hell? And I said, hell yeah, we do, boy. Are you kidding me? I did not do that. It was a good opportunity to talk about sportsmanship. I do, real quickly, I have written some books, too, that you might be, I've written 101 team building exercises for teachers and coaches to use to develop teamwork and trust, and I've written one for parents, I've written one for middle school and high school athletes, and one for a leadership book for coaches. But, and I have some of those up here if you're interested, but please email me, gdale@duke, or text me. I'd be happy to try to be a resource for you. Thank you very much for your time, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.